welcome Sunday family. Welcome to another edition of a Sunday recap of Survivor South African Season 8. This show is non-stop. It's super surprising so far. Normally there's like this slow build to, getting rid of the players who are weaker, who don't know Survivor, who, are annoying or something. But this season, it seems as if they are gunning for big players from the start. So, in fact, it's interesting because my opinion of the castaways at the moment is that a lot of them are big players or big fans. I don't know if a big fan equals a big player. Sometimes it's not the same, but at the moment, it seems like people are in multiple alliances. They are strategically doing some building, some plotting, some sly, underhanded changing of people's minds. It's a very interesting start. Like, it didn't seem slow. It feels like we're about 10 episodes in. Firstly, I got a couple of questions. I want to get to them before we start because sometimes I don't get enough time to get to them. So Hildegard off the bat asked me, how great is Tyson's positioning? Under the radar, physically and strategic. Tyson was one of the players that I was really excited to see play. His backstory is really intense. He suffered some losses in his life and really seems like a super strong and solid guy in who he is. And then wasn't afraid to come out and play the game. In his pre-interview with Mike and Shannon, he spoke about wanting to come out and just be this big player, and he didn't mind whose toes he stood on. What I'm finding so fascinating, and when I saw him and I heard him speak, and I just heard the calm tone of his voice, and the fact that he wanted to play and didn't mind who he screwed on the way over, I really liked the sound of him, because I thought to myself, I wonder if he'll be able to let go of who he naturally is. I find it interesting when people say they want to be this villain and go into the game, but actually it's so difficult to continue to be the villain. Your natural instincts, your natural human emotions and stuff sometimes blur the lines if you did go in to be a villain. So interesting to see how hasn't had to sort of maneuver and play and cut throats just yet. But it's fascinating because Pinty's under the impression that he's the one who was ultimately behind her demise, which I'm interested, because I wonder if it'll change her ideas watching the episode and seeing who exactly was at the point of her being voted out, which was Carla. She was the one who sort of manipulated and guided the decision about Pinty. And Pinty did not help herself as well when she came out and started interrogating Kieran. That seemed like a big moment for Anesu. Anyway, Tyson's positioning, Hildegard, really good, really strong. He hasn't really stood up and said, hey, I'm amazing at puzzles, I'm amazing physically. Slow start, which is good for him. Definitely see him making the merge unless he starts to ruffle feathers strategically. That's unless he starts to put a massive target on his back. But right now there are lots of people who have him in their confidence, which is great. Hildegard then asks me about, would I have taken the idol at tribal council or left it? This is so tricky because what happens watching it and what happens in the game are two very different things. I think all of us will go like, but why would you not grab it then? Or why, obviously, would you not take it when you need it? There's so many things that go through your brain, especially at tribal council. It's like you leave Earth and you go to a foreign planet and you step foot onto that foreign planet and normal things just don't make sense. So you could just see Santoni. What great TV was it when Santoni was just like I just kept thinking Nico's gonna ask Santoni, are you with us? was such great TV. She is absolute gold. I adore her on TV. And I'm really looking forward to what she does with it. But would I have taken it? I don't know. I can't answer that. My initial instinct is to be, you want that to be as big a secret as you can keep. However, you don't know that somebody else is going to get a clue to the same Immunity Idol, right? So if somebody else goes to Immunity Island and they also have the same idea that Santoni had, to use their time wisely, go hunting. What if they find the same clue to that idol and you've left it there for when you need it? Imagine you have this huge game all set out. You are going to make people vote for you, then you're going to play your idol, and then the idol's gone. It could happen. So that, I don't know. I honestly, my immediate thought would be, if it was Jean in that moment, I probably wouldn't be able to hold off. And I would try, and when I went to maybe put my torch in the hole when she arrived, but there were so many people watching her, when they were leaving was an opportunity. I don't know how far away that little Chaichi is to where the poles go in, so I don't know. I think I would have tried to take it, but I don't know. I promise you guys, things that seem so normal on TV in the moment, Santoni even was probably like, thought she was acting supernatural, like, oh, I'm just here checking out the scenery, but she was like that, guys. But in the moment you think you're soup's cool. Anyway, hi Rob, nice to have you here. And Hilgard, I'm going to get to the last point, the last question that you asked near the end. So let's get into it, guys. Incredible episode, and I think the beginning of our understanding of what a rough time these survivors go through. One of the biggest points in this episode was the weather. Whew. Listen, I count my lucky stars, and I don't know if I would have lasted as long as I did had I had the amount of rain that Rob or the guys in season 7 had, or what looks like season 8 is having. It looks absolutely miserable, and it looks cold. You know, that first episode when they were given jackets and we were all judgy and be like, oh, why are they yelling jackets? What the hell? I can see why now. I think I mentioned a little bit last week about pushing them to the edge of their sanity, but not endangering them. It's so hectic to watch it. I was talking a lot to Meryl this week from season 7 about how the game stays with you. And watching them in that moment of utter despair, even at something that's supposed to lift your spirits, a challenge. Guys, let me tell you, when you are on the beach on a normal day, at the beginning of the game, it's not as bad as when you get into the game. At the beginning of the game, there's so many people there. There's so many conversations happening. There's so much getting to know everybody, and people talk about their lives or their irritations or funny stories and stuff. But the deeper you get into the game, the less people there are and the more conversations dwindle, right? They just disappear. The strategies are so like, we'll talk about it when we need to. So if we lose, we'll talk about it. So the highlights for you when you are stuck on an island for a couple days is a challenge, whether it's immunity or reward. Reward is even cooler because you know, I mean, it's not cooler. You know you're going to get something, but at the sacrifice, you don't really lose out. When you win an immunity challenge, it's great if you win, and on the other side of it, people are being voted out. So there's a double-edged sword. But those are the highlights of your days, guys, because there's so much boredom that happens and the paranoia kicks in super early. So even in that miserable, like, even in that moment when they were supposed to be like pumped up and hyped, you literally could see them like shaking. I've never seen the cold so visually on the survivors' face in their bodies. I mean, even Tyson, Mr. Smash, this huge guy, was like, you could see everybody was frozen. So those that make it through this game, my hat is tipped to you, because it looks flippin' tough. It's hard because there's absolutely no hiding from it. The wind will get through any kind of shelter that you build. The rain, sometimes you manage to get it so that the rain isn't as bad, but in a structure that's, say, for instance, 2 or 3 meters long, depending on how much you built it, there's going to be maybe 1 or 2 little spaces that are going to be dry. The rest of it is going to leak and it's going to be bad, but you're never going to escape the wind because you can't build proper walls. So I was saying when the episode was playing to the people that I was watching it with, you have no idea how long the hours are when it's pissing with rain and dark, and you have no idea how many more hours you have to sit through this. It's brutal. Absolutely brutal. So one of the biggest things that I noticed in the challenge, in this episode, I really enjoyed the challenge with the obstacle course at balancing, right? That must have taken so much energy because it seemed like a long course that they had to get through, and carrying massive bags, and there was so much, tribe mates carrying the baggage of other people, literally and figuratively, that I found the challenge really entertaining. And then, has there ever been a fall besides Katinka like Renier? That guy took a tumble. But listen, I've mentioned this before. He's a rugby ref at a really high level, and I'm 100% sure that he's had a huge MFer of a man topple him over before. So I'm sure he's used to big hits. They breed them large in Secunda, and that's where I know that he does a lot of his reffing, and so I'm sure he's taken a hit or two, because he just got up like that was nothing. But I didn't know a body could bend in that way. Anyway, what else kind of stood out, right, besides Renier's spectacular scorpion? We call it the scorpion. When you kind of do this with your body, that's a scorpion. Katinka did it in our season with that horrible worming through the sand thing. I don't even know how she did it, but she did, and it was hectic to watch. Another thing that I found really interesting is how Dino has become the puzzle king. And Dino is here. Hey Dino, shout out to yourself for the puzzles, bro. That one, it's so interesting because I was sitting with people watching the episode as I do. I don't watch it before, I watch it with everybody else. And somebody said, oh, that puzzle looks really easy. And I was like, are you actually on tick right now? That one where you have to turn things to make the pieces fit in. I think they worked their way through, I don't know, 6 or 7 of the team members until they got to Dino. And then that was his opportunity to do it. I mean, that is not something that was easy. Hi, Teresa, welcome. That puzzle was hectic, guys. I've seen it in the international iterations as well. You have to know which way your little corners of each puzzle go, plus which puzzle piece goes into that spot. And no, that is hectic. That was hectic. But what I find so interesting is, okay, first, if you don't know, Dino has, you know, those escape rooms that seem so cool and fun? He owns a company that does that, which is literally, you're in a room and you have to solve puzzles. This guy is in trouble. He is in trouble because although you want to win these things for your tribes, the more you win the hardest bit of the challenge, the more you put a target on your back. So Dino is in trouble because it's not going unnoticed. This season, as I mentioned at the start, are out to gun down the big threats. So the more you thrive, the more of a target you put on your back, which is why I think Tyson is so cool, calm, and collected and under the radar. Renier is also somebody that they are watching out for. Guys, this season is so interesting because of the way people are playing. You know, before we started, they said something like it's guns blazing from the start. But what I'm noticing is the restraint. Some people have come out with this massive, we want to play hard, but it's so nuanced. It is under the radar. It's a soft touch that they're using. The manipulation is a little salt. It's just a little bait. It's just a little, It's not like, here we go, let's salt the shit up. No, it's so under the radar and calm and collected. That's what I'm finding about this series, and I'm finding it so interesting because there's a bunch of characters who you can see want to go, and then they just hold back, let it play out. And then I think for me, the player of this episode has got to be Carla. Am I wrong? That girl, I mean, was in a position that you don't want to be in. You're in a position where, and it's hard because also when you're a woman, you kind of want to really try and work with the other woman. I believe that a woman is at a disadvantage in Survivor to begin with. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it again for the people at the back. A woman is at a disadvantage in Survivor. I have to unpack that a little bit, right? Because I think physically, firstly, a woman is not as strong as a man. So if you've got challenges that require, even my journey in Survivor, guys, I'm not tall. And so even something as simple as getting the bags off the hooks in the one challenge, the one that I won with that big dragon, right? That was like easy for everybody. That I had to jump and get them. It was hectic. The challenge where we had the loved ones challenge, we had to dig under poles. I had boobs that did not go through. You also, think about it, have your period. Guys, you go through a monthly cycle. So if you are there for long enough, you get hit with them emotions and it sucks ass. You're also having to deal with the highs and lows of your actual flippant body creating emotions that are not there. That's just a few of the reasons. I won't even get on. So when you're there, you kind of look to the woman as perhaps, hey, is this somebody who can support me? And with Carla and Pinty, there was just this like clash of strong women. Who's the queen here? And Pinty is that woman who is used to being in an environment at work where she clearly, people listen to her. She knows what she's talking about. People trust her. She's a rope technician, right? So when people are up the side of buildings, she's doing something in that sphere. And there's a lot of trust that goes into that. So she's used to that environment. And when you bring that hard attitude, like, hold on, I'm talking. Hold on, I'm right. I'm talking over you because you are wrong and I'm right. That's very difficult to navigate. And with other women, you really want to work together. And sometimes they just rub you the wrong way. And that's what happened with Carla and Pinty. Carla was just trying to go about drying her shoes next to the fire. Were they too close to the fire? Yeah, probably. But who's Pinty to tell Carla or help her learn a lesson? You should just let it happen. There's so many points at which I call them like political points, right? Because everything in Survivor can be turned into a political mood. It can cause ructions and clashes. Simple thing. My first step onto the island, we are looking around for our well. We're literally looking for the place to set up camp, and Martinez sees a snake. Now, my initial instinct is that snake is on its way out because here comes 20 or 10 on our tribe castaways, and we've just interrupted this tiny little snake, thin little snake, beautiful thing. Off it's going to go because it doesn't need to be around humans. And he decides to cut the head off the snake. I was like, why? What? Anyway, and that was just my view of it. Is I'm protecting us. Look, I'm cutting the head off a snake. I let it go. I was like, that was dumb. Walked away. Wow, that was dumb. And every time there was food around as well, There's so many things that the people at home will never understand. With food, right? Firstly, it is who's going to cook. And I always ended up cooking, not always, I ended up cooking for the majority of the time was because I was always fiddling with the fire and keeping that going. So I just started cooking when the time was right, which means you have to do it super early. I'll tell you why, because you have no idea what the time is. You're always hungry, so you can't judge on that. And the other thing is when the sun is going down, you don't know how long. You're like, oh, wait, it's going down. You don't know how long it's going to take to be down. When that shit's down, there's nothing that's going to happen. It's too dark. You can't see your hand this close in front of your face. When we were cooking and dividing up food and when to eat the vegetables or the fruit, if anybody has any extra fruit, you have no idea. That's the kind of stuff that can blow up into something that you didn't need it to be. It happened so many times with like portioning out with food. Eventually I was like, I'm done. I'm not going to make food anymore. And 2 other women stepped up and said, okay, cool, we'll make the food. And that next day I was watching the sun go down and like, we're not going to eat tonight. It's so interesting how any little thing in your normal life here would just go unnoticed. You would just move on. You would just, nobody would even have looked twice. In Survivor, it is a sticking point that can literally put a target on your back. So you have to be very careful which battles you choose to fight. Hildegard's talking about being hungry. You have no idea how hungry a person can get. Interesting fact, I went 5 days without food once on Survivor. 5 days without putting, besides water, anything in my body. I literally couldn't stand the taste and the feel of rice, cold, tepid rice in my mouth. It was the same texture, the same temperature, the same everything, taste, everything in my mouth. And eventually I was like, I could do without this. And I went 5 days. And after one of the challenges, I walked off and fainted off camera. And the medics were like, when last did you eat? And I was like, I actually can't remember. I kept giving my food to Werner. He owes me. No, he doesn't. I voted him off. Anyway, so Pinty and Carla, I think there was a huge opportunity, and we probably didn't see most of it either. That could have been more explosive, and I think that Carla's level-headedness just allowed her to navigate that and be like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not in a number majority. How do I approach this? How do I get it? And Carla's in like 3 different alliances. So she managed to sway a couple of important people in all of those alliances. And at the end of it, Pinty was walking out with a very shocked look on her face. And I remember seeing her after interview on this episode. She was like, oh, Anesu didn't do it. And Anesu's there voting for her front and center. So very, very well finessed from Carla. Carla is a powerhouse and we need to keep an eye on. There's another duo that we need to keep an eye on. And that is Rhaenyra and Amy on the other tribe. That is a very, very powerful and secretive duo. I had no idea they were working together. This was the first sniff I had of it. That is the ultimate that you are looking for. You are looking for a number 2 that nobody knows you're working with. That's the goal. You want to be tight with another person that can feed you information and nobody knows is working with you. You tell them stuff, they tell you stuff. And so come a merge, you'd be like, remember us, remember we're working together, and you just, that is the goal. Those 2, Rhaenyr's got a head on him. He's an engineer, right? He's a super mathematical, super smart person. And Amy is a very charismatic, I mean, Rhaenyra also, people want to work with him. And they are both so smart and so socially adept at talking to people, making people feel comfortable, talking about the strategy of the game. It's going to be very interesting to see where that 2 comes up. Hildegard says Carla and Mike. I was going to say, but they're a bit more out in the open. Everybody knows that there are 2 and that you have to keep an eye on them. And I think one of the reasons why Mike's name kept coming up was because they know he's so tight with Carla. Interesting that Carla's name didn't come up, but I think that's because Carla's in so many alliances and people are working with her. So it's really, really working in her benefit. But I found it so endearing that Carla, in our second episode, which is probably 6 days into the game, that she has this super protective relationship with Mike, because she's like, somebody brought up his name and I wanted to fight for him. I wanted to go in and do battle. And it's so interesting. People are like, oh, how can you have a relationship that quick into the game? I'm telling you, it's real. When she says, I love the man, unless he now turns around and does something really outrageous and like cuts her to the bone, that relationship in the moment is so real. You feel it. That's why it's so difficult, and why somebody at the end of the episode was like, oh, look at Anesu, fake crying. I said to them, you know what? She's probably really crying, because it takes a lot to vote out somebody that you like, that you know really wanted to be there. It's real emotion, really real emotion. So it's fascinating to just see where this is going to go. A lot of people are asking me this. Is they're talking about the tribe split. If you didn't watch all the way to the end and you haven't seen a promo, the next episode, they say drop your buffs. What? It's episode 3 and we're dropping our buffs. As a viewer, I love it. I think it's cool. But also as a viewer, I find it difficult to keep track. I remember last year when they had 3 tribes, I was getting so confused. Who was working with who was in what tribe, which blonde are we talking about? There's so many things to now keep track of. And if you're in the game, that's a blow. That's a massive blow, because now you're literally rolling the dice. And again, we talk about luck. Right? And this season, I think, this is not going to be a very popular opinion. I think there are too many complications in this season. I think there's so many things that can change the trajectory of somebody's journey on it, that you go to Immunity Island, there's choices to be made there. And I know LaRue, when he was designing this season, he won't be joining it, his anniversary, so happy anniversary, LaRue. There's so many points he wanted to present choice, he wanted to present option to the people playing. And I think that there's too many things to keep track of. If you're like us and you've watched so much Survivor, it's kind of neat, it's kind of cool to see somebody in a position where they have to make a call that could impact the game. But if you're just an Mnet 101 watcher and Thursday nights are great TV and you're just watching it there with your family, if you at some point go, I don't understand what's going on, then that's a problem for me. If it becomes too technical, and I think Immunity Island, we're taking away, think about it, right? We've got, I think it's 47-minute episode. We're taking away moments of island life, which for me, put a lot of things into perspective, relationships, alliances, whose role is what in the camp. And we're taking away from that to watch somebody do, firstly, read the very complicated, if you do this, you get this. If you do that, you get this. If you don't lose, say goodbye, adios amigos, no shelter for you tonight. It literally takes up so much time to A, explain what Immunity Island is doing, what they're doing, and then B, watch somebody do it with the chance of them either getting it or not seem very slim. Santoni was lucky she got that challenge right, seemed to have a little bit more time than Teresa. I don't know, maybe it was the same amount. And then she used her time to hunt for an idol clue, which was so smart. And maybe Teresa did it and she didn't get it, so we didn't see it. But I personally think that the more complicated we make it, the harder it is for people to keep track of what's actually going on. And I also think for somebody who's got like a solid game plan and a solid alliance, it keeps throwing curveballs at you, which you can't do anything about. Then it really is about luck. Then it's about how good you are, not at Survivor, but looking for idols. So I don't know how I feel. Maybe the deeper we go into the game, the more I will lean towards really enjoying Immunity Island. But if you're somebody standing on the beach and you go to tribal council that night, you actually have no idea what the outcome is going to be, because at some point everybody's going to have an idol. It's going to be Idol Town, and I'm very interested to see where it goes. I'm scared. Let me put it that way. I'm scared that we might go too far. Anyway, that's just my opinion. Let me just go through some of the comments or questions here. Yep. Hi, Mike. Nice to see you, buddy. Okay. Just a quick one. What makes castaways feel as close as they do after only a few days together? That's from Mike V, who was actually on Survivor, so you should have some insights to this, Mike. But you know what I will say? It's not just castaways. It is reality TV. I think it has to do with when you remove all other influences on your life. So your work, your job, your going to the movies, your cell phone, your makeup, your clothing, your hair being slick, your going to the gym and working out, and that being the definition of who you are, and like really putting pride and effort into the way you look and who you are, and the job defining you, and your social life defining you, and going clubbing and drinking and having a glass of wine, all those things. I think if you strip them away and you starve people of attention, right? So with my season, I know we had a lock in of, I think, and this is literally logistics, right? Because you can't be, it's not, nobody arrives, one day and then you start the game the next day, because we have to get 20 people from all across South Africa to a certain place. And that takes a few flights. With us in Samoa, it took 4. I think it took 3 or 2 for us. So logistically, they have to get everybody to a certain place, and then you have to wait. You've got to wait until production is ready to go. You've got to wait for all of the castaways to be there, and our wait was 7 days. I know in this season, the minimum that they were there was 8 days. They were quarantined, so everybody came out of their normal lives, which essentially was still in a lockdown. I think we were in level 1 or 2, and we went from that into the game. Now the whole Survivor SA season 8 was allowed to film because they were going to go into what's called COVID bubbles, and you'll see at the start of the episode on Mnet they say this show is filmed in a COVID bubble. What essentially that means is that certain people come into certain contact with certain people, right? So if you're the orange bubble and you're like, say for instance, the art department, or wardrobe or logistics or catering, you never come into contact with this bubble. This bubble never comes into contact with this bubble. This bubble only allows to contact with this bubble, something like that, right? So I know the producers, the beach, the guys who film on the beach were the only people on Survivor who were ever allowed to come into contact with the castaways. They had certain entrances to the hotel. It was very, very lockdown-like, right? And I think that those real relationships come from being in some sort of lockdown, being starved of other human attention. Then you get put into an environment that is frightening. It's horrible. The only thing, and I was talking to another castaway this week about how hectic it is on your psyche. You don't know that it happens. And I'm talking a lot now, listen carefully. The castaways who are on this recap now, who are in the show, you went through a tough time filming it. It's even harder watching it. I'm going to say that again. You went through a tough time filming it. It's harder to watch it. You don't know that now. Now you're all like, hey, I'm a celebrity. I'm on TV. People know who I am. It really starts to hit you when the show is done, how difficult it was. You're going to start to have issues with some of the things. I can't explain it, guys. 3 years on, I'm still talking about it. I'm still trying to figure out, I'm still trying to deal with some of the things that come up. And that's not any It's not any pointing fingers to Survivor South Africa. It is Survivor. It is being pushed to the edge of your sanity, the edge of your physical comfort, and then playing this game. It is a mindfuck, guys. And so I think that when you get put into that environment with people who are the only people who will ever understand what you're going through, there's some sort of bond that forms. And I know it happens on The Bachelor too. So people like The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, how can this person be in love for only 2 or 3 weeks? I promise you, it's real. When you remove the outside influence and your outside padding that you have, your job, your car, your whatever it is, your comfort, something happens, and it's real relationships that form. Yeah, that's the only way I can describe it. And now also some of the people who you were in war with are the only people who understand what you're going through, and sometimes you don't even like them. So it's a very tricky place to be. Hilgard says, Tony, finding the extra idol is exactly why Dino asking to be sent wasn't a horrible move. There are other advantages at Immunity Island, 100%. In the preview for the next episode, though, she does tell chappies about it. So 3 days of travel, Mike said, to Samoa. Yep, I think we did. I know it was like 2 flights. Kieran corrected me. He said 14 days of quarantine in total for us. That is a long time. With us, we didn't really have any communication. We were just like, the next day would come, and then the next day would come, and 3 times a day. Here's your food. That was the only contact we had with other people. We had no cell phones. We had no TV. We had nothing except one day they came around with a bag of like 70-year-old books, and they were like, hey, do you want a book to read? Thankfully, in my brain, the way that I work, I always think logically about stuff. And what I realized on Survivor, by the way, is that common sense and logic is subjective. What makes so much sense to me and in my brain is not the same way other people work. Anyway, so I took snacks. I knew I was going to be in a room for a while. And I took my Kindle and my iPod. So I was so chill. I was so relaxed. It didn't get to me. I was also super single at the time. And I was so used to being by myself. Like no issues. So that initial quarantine is super hard for like extroverted people, which I am. But at that time, I didn't really mind because I was prepared for it. And that isolation can screw you up even before you get into the game. And as Santoni just said, mindfuck is the best word to describe Survivor. Exactly. And it's not just the game itself. I mean, for the people playing now, the people on your TV now, the mindfuck is even more, guys. Just think about this. They were cast. It hadn't been like finalized. They were cast in March. And then like a year later, they were all like, oh, this is not going to happen, whatever. And then all of a sudden it's go time. You're in. Oh, this is happening. We're going. The secrecy around Survivor is, so if I get cast now, I'm not allowed to tell anybody I'm cast because I must just disappear off the face of the earth and then come back 49 days later and just carry on living my life. And then the TV show goes to air. The cast gets announced. The TV show goes to air. Then I can talk about it. But I can't talk about anything that happens in the game. There's so much secrecy and anxiety for somebody like me who wants to blurt my whole life story to anybody I meet. Keeping secrets was so fucking crazy for me, and it was hectic, and people were also judging my game, and I'm sitting here going, cool bro, you're never gonna play, firstly, and secondly, I make it to the fucking final 2, so fuck you. Excuse my swearing, everybody, but it's such a crazy place to be in. So my hats are off to all the people who play. I'm putting this out there now. Spread the word. If you ever need to talk to somebody, because it's nice to just unpack it and debrief with somebody. I am very close with Afrikaans and Mnet. You can chat to me. You don't have to tell me what happens in the game, but if you really need somebody to talk to, seriously, DM me. Slide all into those DMs and we can chat. Honestly, guys, it's a strange thing to live with. There's also this weird idea that you're somewhat famous, right? I'm on TV for 17 weeks. and I'm gonna make money from it, I'm gonna be an influencer, all this stuff, and nobody gives a fuck. Nobody, unless you really, really work hard at it and you have an agent, nobody actually cares that you are on Survivor. I work in the media, I work in a radio station. Nobody gives a damn that I was on Survivor, not at all. So trust me, it's a completely weird space to be in, the whole thing. Let me just, get through. Mari's got an observation. I think that merging at 15 from Tribe Council picks looks like there are 15 holes for torches. Whoa, 15. Yes. No, but listen. No, I don't want that. 15. Woo. 11 was a lot. Listen, let me tell you, Survivor is designed for big personalities. If you happen to be anywhere near a group of people who played Survivor, watching Survivor, it's a very, very loud experience. During the challenges, when people make silly moves, when people make great moves, it's a very loud experience. We are loud individuals who play Survivor, some of us. To put 15 people next to each other in a merge, I wouldn't know where the cameras would go to. That's a lot. I really hope that doesn't happen. I see there's a question down here. Apologies, I haven't got it. Graham says, why were they gunning for Mike? Did I miss that? I to be honest with you, Graham, I think it's because of his relationship with Carla. And I think he also seems kind of like a free agent, which is bad for him, but it's also good because that means that he can be a floating vote. He can be somebody who you can approach and say, hey, Mike, do you want to work with us? How are you feeling? Who's your target? And that's dangerous. I just think he kind of is aligned with Carla, and that's it. So I don't know 100%. Interesting to see. Also, can we just talk about the fact that some of the survivors we really, really haven't heard from, right? Obviously, there's too many people for us to get all in one episode. But have we actually seen Marisha on TV? Have we? I don't remember at all. We've heard very little from Nicole as well, which makes me think that they're going into the game. Teresa had a very, very quiet edit this week. Warda we heard a little bit from. Kian was nowhere in this episode. So I'm looking forward to the herd being thinned a bit so that we can get to know and see a little bit more about the characters. Let me tell you one thing I learned from a source this week, that Sean, our very favorite Sean from Tribal Council, who's like, yes, is apparently one of the best guys at camp. And it's so interesting to me because I heard this and I was like, we don't see that. It's one of the reasons that make me think that we're getting too much other stuff. So like, here I am making the editor's call, right? Like, who the hell do I think I am and what the hell do I think I know? But I think Immunity Island is cool and all that, but are we losing some of the gems from camp? Maybe nighttime in the rain, who's doing what, who's going out to get more palm leaves to cover the roof, you know what I mean? So I heard that Sean is the guy in and around camp. He's apparently the nicest individual, so I hope we see more from him, and I hope we see him get himself into, we didn't really see much of the aftermath. We saw that moment at the well where he was like, guys, you voted me out. I'm upset about it, but well done. It was amazing. That's all we really saw from, we didn't really see much from the other tribe. Anesu had a big episode as well, also in a number of alliances and sort of the linchpin within them. And everybody is so like trusting at the moment. I don't know if I'm misreading it, but people are super like solid in their alliances. But what I find interesting is that not one person is like only in one alliance, except maybe Mike. That's all I can think, right? I don't know. Guys, to watch Amy and Renier. That twosome is up it. I think Anela had a very quiet episode. Carla had a very strong episode. Dino had a very strong episode. Are we going to see Dino being targeted? These big guys, these guys of the, who want to come out here and be the ultimate survivor, I think are going to have a problem. Hilgard made another point. Poor showing from Amy in a third challenge now. Nobody noticed. It's so interesting to me how some people get noticed and some don't. Somebody like me who actually, let me put the record straight, was seen as somebody who was weak in challenges. I was part of, I think, 13 wins, including the 2 for individual immunity. And somehow I was seen as a weak player. In all of the challenges, I pulled my own weight and other people were failing. In fact, I often brought us back from losing in the puzzles. So I was somehow noticed and people were talking about me being a weak player. Why? Because I'm loud, I'm big, I'm noticeable, but yet somebody like Amy is going under the radar for the same kind of things. Again, interesting unrolling of the unraveling is actually the right word, Jean, of the characters in this show. Hilgard, you speak about women being at a disadvantage and a target on Dino, etc. Perfect season for female winner. I do think it's so difficult because I was saying that we're at a disadvantage and I wish that women would work together. That's the problem, is that oftentimes, and it's such a fucking cliche, and I hate it. I hate it because I'm also somebody who does it, is that with women it's so complicated because we feel threatened by each other. So we feel that there's not enough space at the table for us all to do well, that I must cut down another woman to do well. And that's not what happens. If we work together, we are more dominant and can take the place of a man. And that's the way it should work. But it doesn't. And there's so many contributing factors to why it is. It's our ego, it's our confidence, it's the way we view our bodies, and we knock ourselves down and we think somebody's smarter, better looking, prettier, fitter, whatever it is. There's so much comparisons with women that happen. We don't even think about it, but it happens. And so I would love it if we see that threesome of the blondes come together and annihilate. But with the tribe shuffle, where are we going to see them? You could land up, with being in a tribe where you've got 3 different alliances to now going and landing up with absolutely nobody. You just have to graft, you have to work, you've got to go and learn about people, who they are, what do they stand for, how can you work with them. It's so complex, guys, and we're on season 8 and only episode 3 next week. This game is pumping and it's moving. So I'm super interested to see. Morris, you backing Santoni for the win? Interesting choice, bro. I think, yes, I wouldn't, if I had to put my money on somebody, I would have absolutely no idea where to go. There are so many. I don't know if you can predict this at the moment. There's too many unknowns because of Immunity Island. There are going to be so many idols in play, idol nullifiers. There's going to be so many different things. I don't know if somebody is like, oh, that person's a winner, if they will make it to the end. I don't know, guys. This season is so crazy. Oh, Marius is saying not a prediction, a wish. Do you have a prediction? Do you guys have predictions? Who you think is going to win the show? My wish is that somebody like we get a Teresa as a win, who's like the Suri of South African Survivor. The way she speaks, the way she thinks, the way she engages with people reminds me so much of Teresa. I love an underdog, obviously. If we can get... I'm rooting for Amy. I'm rooting for Carla. I think that they are super strong women. I think Kieran is somebody who we haven't seen a lot from yet. He's a very wise thinker. He thinks before he speaks. He's just super calm, and that seems to be like this undertone of this season, is that there's this calmness where we had players like me, like Martinez, like Tom, like Tony, who were just like, it felt manic. Do you know what I mean? Like this season's got like this super calm. Hi, Kieran. So I don't know, man. I don't know. Tyson is a strong contender too. Kian is a dark horse. I don't know, guys. I don't know. Chappies is fun to watch. Paul is a darling, isn't he? I love him. Santoni, obviously. I don't know, guys. Anyway, let's wrap it up. We'll do it again on Sunday. Graham says, if you don't know, guys, Graham is a former winner. Do you think Renier will end up like Jacques, losing his own analysis paralysis? I don't think he will. Renier is such a calm-headed, level-headed guy. For me, he reminds me of Werner more than Jacques. I'm not sure about his social game. We're only in episode 3, or 2 at the moment, and I feel like he's more calm than Jacques. Jacques was a bit manic at times. Dino, for me, like has got the Jacques vibes, but I think Renier, even though he's super calm, I think Renier has a target because of the way he sees the game and the way he wants to play the game. And no matter how you like word it, you're still going to come across as this mastermind. And he's surrounded by other game players. And there's a difference between, and I put myself into this character, a fan of the game and a student of the game, a scientist of Survivor. Like, Renier is a scientist. He has been studying this game for 20 years. I am a fan of the game. I couldn't name to you 10 winners of the game. I can tell you the great themes. I can tell you some great challenges, but I don't study the game. And Renier, if the way he plays it, I think he's already got a target on his back just because he's so like aware of it all. So I hope that he can surround himself with people who are equally as problematic. Not that he's problematic, but also has those issues, like Dino, like Kieran, who else? Like Carla, like Mike. If he can put himself next to those kind of people and use them as shields, then we're talking. But it's, I don't know, guys. I don't know. I'm just hoping that we don't get like jackknifed with the old Immunity Island, guys. Chappies is fun, but too full of himself. He's just, it's so interesting for me. When Chappies talks, he reminds me sometimes of Martinez, but he's more self-aware. But he's super confident, and he's like a life coach, right? So he's got this inner confidence, and it's like this manifestation. And sometimes when you're manifesting out loud, it can sound like you're an arrogant ass, but he just believes that he's gonna win, and that belief it's steadfast, bro, steadfast. So that's who he is, you know. Jani's team, everyone. I know it's hectic. This cast is so good. Renier had Werner as a mentor. By the way, I also learned that Renier and Jacques went to university together and know each other longer than Werner and Renier. The bro is learning from lots of people. Okay, this season has a lot less arrogant people than last season. Absolutely. Santoni, loving these lives. Thanks, love. And we're loving you, Santoni. Absolutely. Second, third, fourth that. Guys, 3 minutes to wrap. Any last questions, any last comments before we go? I'll do this again on Sunday. Team Sunday night recaps. It's a little family here. If you don't know, Maris is a regular, Lara is a regular, Heelgard is a regular, Fadil is a regular, LaRue is oftentimes a regular, Taryn GF is also a regular. Yeah, nice to have you all here. I will end that off unless there's any last words. And if you guys miss it, if you're only tuning in now and you want to see the full thing, I will put it onto my YouTube at the end. Thankfully, I have internet and no more technical difficulties this week. Guys, keep well. Have a good week. Wednesday's a public holiday, like a short week. Enjoy it. Peace out. A-Town. Bye, everybody. See you next week. Drop your buffs. Oh!